The kid from Tennessee is now the poster child for what's wrong with college sports, Meg.
Do you see his final three?
What's his final three?
North Carolina.
And they said they're not interested.
Come on, come up with the second one because the third one's a banger. I'm going to have to go back to the second one. Number 3, the Tulane Green Wave.
Stop it.
I swear to God. They're on the final 3 list for Nico. Who's the other one, Cowboy? UCLA. UCLA, UNC, Tulane.
So a little more context around the contract situation Nico has in Tennessee. He signed for $8 million out of high school with Tennessee. It's a 4-year deal. His first year was in high school, so he's got 3 at Tennessee. This was going to be his final year. He didn't have an agent. He was being rep by his dad and a former Florida staffer who was also a family friend. Going back to the college football playoff, they lost to Ohio State after that game. The dad and the family friend were reaching out to other schools, seeing what compensation packages they could bring, all in a quest to bump that NIL number up. Tennessee didn't know about that. Fast forward to the spring, there was a report the other day that said he was in negotiations with Tennessee. That wasn't public knowledge. His dad, Nico's father, tweeted out something along the lines of a lot more going on behind the scenes, basically putting it on the university. Then a couple days later was the final practice before the spring game. Nico didn't show. He didn't tell coaches he was not going to be there. No response. They tried to get in contact with him. Nothing. Josh Heupel walks off the field after practice, still can't get in touch, and says, we're going to cut ties. We're good. We don't need to draw this out any further.
Yeah, the numbers I saw where he was making 2.5, and he's seeing other guys get bigger deals, and he has a track record, and why am I not worth 4? It's a Wild West, needless to say, and it's I think college sports are in need of a little bit of regulation, some gutters.
No question. No question.
Gutter guards to go on this bowling alley of a sport because it's free agency now without a salary cap.
Well, eventually the coaches aren't going to want to do it anymore. And in the beginning, I can remember the coaches being the least sympathetic group in the whole thing because you're like, these kids, people are slinging arrows at these kids for wanting to transfer at all. And, you know, of course, the counter to that is, well, coaches can leave anytime for no reason and make more money and leave these kids in the dust. And we've heard tons of stories about how, you know, this coach didn't even call, didn't have a team meeting, just fucked off. And then, you know, like players are checking it on their phones like, hey, my head coach, the guy that sat in my living room and promised my parents something, is now, you know, leaving. And you weren't sympathetic to the coaches. But now, even as much, like, listen, are they overpaid? Is it a gross mismanagement of funds by a lot of these universities? Has it become ridiculous? But yeah, now it's ridiculous on the player side too.
Promises back then weren't quantifiable. Now the promises are literally $1 million.
Everything is a quid pro quo. And I completely understand trying to get your slice of the pie because the pie is big. And there has to be a way that kids can get paid for their services and get the accurate slice of the pie without turning it into a fucking constant negotiation. I don't care, like, you know, like, because I'm not a fan of the sport anymore, really. Like, and I'm not like one of these people that kind of was like, I'm going to protest the sport. I work in pro football, so I don't have to watch college football. And so I don't, because I want Saturdays off. But I'll tell you what, I used to love it. And I used to know the harsh reality was that college football was shorting these athletes. Now it feels like these kids are not kids anymore, and that's okay. But the flip side of that coin is you can be getting bad advice and get too aggressive and distress yourself as an asset. And you know, like, I'm trying to think back to being 18, 19 and making some of these decisions. I would have a hard time. And I would be lucky because my dad played in the league, and I think he would be less disruptive. But it's a dangerous time for these kids because you're making decisions that are going to stick with you. This kid who's a good college football player is going to be remembered for this.
True. And you're making some decisions that will not stick with you because you're entering a portal and doing this 4 times. You're going to 4 different schools, a lot of these kids. My favorite college hoops team took 3 commitments last week alone. None of the 3 guys visited the campus. I mean, it's nutty. Oh, and then one of them is already decommitted committed was committed for 2 days.
Which is wild. And, like there was a UVA basketball player who left recently. And, like on the surface, you're like, why would you do that or whatever? But then you hear what he's making at the other school. And you're like, if I were a college athlete, of course I would skate. If I wasn't going to be an NBA player, it's one thing if you think you're going to be a pro football player, although it's hard to compare the two situations because in football it's 100% injury and you can lose it at any point. So I certainly understand people trying to get the money now, but you got to realize, this stuff sticks with you. And at some point, the people calling the shots can build a personality profile on you because of the way you handle yourself as a businessman. Like, I'm sorry, I'm all player empowerment, but at some point, the old school people look correct. You can't just do whatever the fuck you want. Now, another side effect of this whole thing is we're talking about high school sports. Specialization, now more than ever, I played 4 sports in high school, right? And part of that was because I kept getting kicked off baseball trips. So I had to take a year or 2 off and play lacrosse. Seriously, I got kicked off of how many of John Grisham's baseball trips? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, John. 2. One in Florida at the Sea Turtle Inn. I tried to buy Swisher Sweets. And the lady was with somebody else's ID. The lady, I was like 13 or 14. 14. Lady was like, police officer parking outside, like, come on in, sir. He took me back to the Sea Turtle Inn. And my coach told me on the elevator ride up that he feels like he stuck his testicles on the table for me and I just smashed them. It was the longest elevator ride ever. Okay, the other one was Atlanta, All-Stars. Me and Steve Wickline, I don't know where you are now, Steve, but we sat in the parking lot. We somehow went and bought some beers. I think we were like 16. Sat in the parking lot of this Holiday Inn, behind the Holiday Inn, and just got shit-faced. And the way we got caught was we went back to our room and started prank calling the coaches. But I got kicked off a couple baseball trips and ended up playing lacrosse. So I played 4 sports. Kids aren't going to do that anymore. And I don't blame them. Honestly, as a parent, if my kid's pretty good at basketball, and I'm pretty aware that I'm coming from a privileged point of view where I grew up with enough money to not need my college career to be make or break for me, right? But a kid who's growing up and doesn't know what his future holds and doesn't have disposable income or a safety net and plays 3 sports, all of a sudden gets a little better at basketball, you can be a solid Division I player right now and make a couple mil. Why would I not just have my kid doing the fucking Mikan drill in perpetuity? That is life-changing money. So it's created a situation where I think high school sports might be a necessary collateral damage. If you really like the free market, this is what happens, and it's messy, and I think there needs to be guardrails, and I think we need to figure out. It's obviously eventually going to have to be a collective bargaining agreement, right?
Yeah, because the other thing is all these Power 4 teams are recruiting the portal. They're not recruiting high school kids. They're not recruiting high school seniors. They're building their team through the portal, and then if they add 1 or 2 high school kids, okay, great. And that becomes the recruiting class for a basketball team. A few more guys for a football team, but you start with the guys who have already shown what they can do, usually at smaller schools. So a lot of these high school kids are going to smaller schools, and they're a farm system for these Power 4 teams.
Yep.
It's pro sports.
And then you don't get as many upsets come tournament time and that sort of thing, which you talked about. So it changes college sports. And I get it. Listen, we all want college players to get paid and knew eventually if it did, it would get messy. But I think some things are just kind of ridiculous. And it doesn't make you anti-player to be come on, bro. Hey, it's your right. Hold out a spring practice. But it reads like an Onion article.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, and you're like, damn, how do you fix this? And it probably eventually is a CBA or something like that. The transfer portal thing, I know we're talking about like NIL funds and just the whole landscape, but like I really do believe it sets a bad precedent for players to be able to leave. It's the classic, hey, these coaches are so fucked up, yada, yada, yada. They're bad people. You leave when things get hard. And I know they're getting paid, but it doesn't justify them players being able to do it. Like you don't justify an action like that with another action like that you've deemed for years to be low character. I understand that some players need to be able to transfer, right? Like, and I think in football, especially quarterbacks, like I think quarterbacks should be able to move around, right? But if you're a position player, it's kind of like decisions matter, right? And if you make a decision, you should have to stick with it for more than a year. I don't know if it's 2 years. I don't know what it is, but like, guess what? When you grow up and you make decisions, some of them you can't undo. So for a college football player to be every year like, I don't like it here, I'm not getting enough snaps, like, that it's this coach doesn't like me, I'm not getting enough looks, and half the time the guys aren't even really that good, right? So they're doing this and robbing themselves of a college experience to bounce around because they can't commit to something and go through the hard shit, dude. Like, I know I sound old right now. Macon, you can check me if I sound too old. But I do think there are lessons to be learned for going through hard shit. Like, I would have transferred from Virginia if it was easier. After my freshman year, we were running a 3-4. That never changed. I'm in a 4-I, like stacking up Stephon Hire and people like that at Maryland. Like, they outweighed me by 100 pounds. And I wasn't happy. And Grow was tough. And he became like my best friend. But had I not stuck it out, who knows where my life would be? And I'm not saying every kid needs to do that, but there are lessons to be learned sticking it out a year longer. And I know there's a finite amount of time, and maybe, because they're not students anyways, right? We've kind of accepted this. Maybe 4 years isn't the window. Maybe we add a 5th year of eligibility for people, like to justify making you stick to it a little bit longer at a certain destination. And it's tricky in football because every time you take the field, you can get hurt. And the longer you play, the more you're damaged goods. So a year in football, that's more important than 2 years in basketball. And I understand that. But there are lessons you can learn. And I don't like the way things are going. And now I find myself at 40 years old, like feeling like the old man yelling at the cloud a little bit, where I'm like, this is fucked. This is fucked. And I'm not mad. You know how you get these people who are online and they're like, it's usually like Joe Fanta was like the white guy that didn't want to see the young black athlete get paid. Like those guys, they're mad because you've ruined the product for them in their minds. I'm not that guy. I just don't care. Like I've got 3 kids and I do pro football for a living. You're just going to lose me.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of people you're going to lose. And you could argue that college football has maybe never been more popular.
I don't know. You certainly don't have the you don't learn the players' names when they're not at a place longer than a few months.
It's hard to really form the bonds that are going to like you just brought it up. Fans, you have to get attached to a player at some point. Like that was what made it special. Like, like Nate Collins walks around town here and people stop and like, you're Nate Collins. I remember you played in, yada, yada. There's just not that same connection to the players that are passing through your universities. And eventually, will it affect the product? I think so. Or will it affect the viability of the product? I think so. It's already affected the product.
It'll affect everything from top down.
Then it just becomes the minor leagues, bro.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck wants to watch minor league football? They try to do it every year. USFL, XFL, like how many iterations of not as good as the NFL do we have to see to realize that, like, when the football quality is not great, people don't give a fuck.
Also, how about the benefactors here? I understand a lot of people have a ton of money and a lot of disposable income, but I just dropped $2 million on a quarterback for my alma mater to go 7-5. Like, is that a sound
You're
investment?
silly rich. You're like silly rich, dude.
I don't get it, man. I don't get that. I could understand funding scholarships a little more. That made sense. But just dropping a bag on a kid and you have good
And
luck.
then he doesn't play.
Roll the ball out there. Yeah, how's he doing? Oh, he tore his ACL in spring ball. Sorry about it. We're gonna need you to run that bag back for next season. Yikes.
Dog, do you think it feels more personal when they don't play your bought kid than it does when like a coach says something mean to your biological kid?
Yes. And then you're calling up the coach being like, hey, where's my kid? Oh, your kid? No, not that kid. The kid I paid for.
And then the coach is
On the
trying to
field.
explain to the fucking like estate planner who has a bunch of money that like he doesn't set the edge.
Yes.
Like, like it's like a parody. There are very funny. If you didn't care about college football, there'd be a lot of funny things going on right now. It's
Yep.
just it's silly.
Yep.
I don't know. Fuck. This kid's gonna go down in history. What if this kid's the kid that's just we've had enough? And it sucks to talk bad about kids, but when you're asking for this much money, you are no longer a kid, right? And like maybe this kid or maybe this young man is the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe they're like, no, this guy's, come on, you're way too mid at the position to be asking for this kind of money. And I would never say that unless you were asking for this kind of money. But maybe like the college football world at large, because this feels a little bit like the most ridiculous thing I've seen. Then hearing that people are in the middle of the playoffs asking for more money, which you cannot do in the pros. Is it fucked up that you're not just splitting the bag with college football and all the TV deal money and everything? Like, yes, but you can't in the current set of circumstances go in the middle of the playoff. If you're going to do it like in mass. Like get the other quarterbacks for the other teams to say, hey, we ain't suiting up. We got you here. We ain't suiting up until you rip up your agreement with the TV people and give us a cut. Do it like an adult. When you do it like this, you're just an independent contractor. And eventually you're like, I don't want to deal with that contractor because he's like, and that's the way it's going to go in the workforce too.
We got a point guard from Oklahoma.
Who doesn't?
And his dad was on X.com, and fan of the team said, oh, this will be great depth at the guard position. And the dad was like, excuse me? Depth? Because the club brought in a BYU kid as well. Well, the Oklahoma kid has decommitted. He's no longer going to be in the fold at this mystery school that I'm referencing. Don't know if he got paid his signing bonus or not.
God bless Stanford Steve because he knows where everybody is.
Yes, he does. But that's going to get harder too. Like, where'd the star go to college? It's everybody's most favorite game.
You know what else sucks? And this is, again, like, let me climb back up on my little soapbox one more time before we get to Kenny Mayne. I've got some guys that I played with at Virginia that are like family members to me. I'll name one. He lives a couple miles away from me. His name's John Phillips. He drives a dump truck and hits softballs 500 feet. And he's one of my best friends, and I love the guy. There's nobody that makes me happier than running into John Phillips. I got to play with him for years. I got to play with Tom Saney, the other tight end, for years. Was at his wedding. Like I got a group chat with 7 dudes from my college football team. It's firing every day. Shout out to Dewdrop and the boys. Like Clint Sinham, talked to him a couple days ago. He's out at Colorado State. Like real bonds, bro. Like deep shit that when I think about college football, I think about the depth of the relationships that I made. And it is a shame, and maybe they'll never know because things have changed so much, that most kids are going to get robbed of that experience. Now, I think for most of my teammates, they probably tell you they wish they got paid, right? So this isn't simple, but I will tell you, it is a shame, and I'm starting to feel like the old man yelling at a cloud a little bit.
Yeah. Well, then that's two of us. I think you're spot on.
Boo!
Root
But hey,
for-
I'm wishing the kid luck, the young man. It's not that I want the young man not to play well.
especially if he winds up in New Orleans at Tulane University.
Then we can go run the
way.
bid back.
Yeah, we can.
But half the time, it's not even the young man. Half the time, it's people around the young man sowing doubt as to whether or not, you know, that athlete is getting compensated fairly. And like that whole thing is when you put a battery in an athlete's back and tell them, hey, they're fucking you over here, you know, you're worth more. Like, you're pretty impressionable and you're competitive. And so like you just it's a fucking shit show.